even when the Flyers get postponed and you're thinking to yourself, man, it's a blessing I don't have to watch the Flyers tonight. I don't have to watch that product on the ice today. But no, for Flyers fans, it just gets worse and worse and worse with what Bobby Clarke said today about Ron Hextall on the Cam and Strick podcast. So before we get into all of that, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to TTP Sports, and the most important thing you can do is hit that subscribe button. I will greatly appreciate that. So if you are a new viewer to the channel looking for all your latest Philadelphia sports news, recaps, and events, this is the place to be. Depending on the outcome, it is a great or a miserable time depending on that outcome. And if you are a current viewer of the channel, I am grateful for you being here this long and looking to continue that down the road as we continue to grow this channel. So getting into the business today, it just continues to get worse for Flyers fans, even when the Flyers game does not get played, because this tonight's game against the Carolina Hurricanes was postponed because of the Flyers COVID situation, even though it's still a little weird because why didn't the NHL postpone the Flyers and Penguins game when the Flyers had more guys on the COVID protocol list, when I think they only have 2 or 3 guys now on it. So I don't know why they postponed this game, but that is another discussion for another day, because at the end of the day, that's not what this video is going to be about. Because like I said, Flyers fans, when the Flyers don't play, it just continues to get worse. And this is just something that kind of, blows your eyes out a little bit, because there were talks about this, in the rumor mill by some Flyers beat reporters, but it wasn't really truly confirmed. But now when Bobby Clarke comes out and talks about this on one of the, I think this is like a St. Louis Blues podcast. I don't know why they had Bobby Clarke on it, but hey, it gets us some breaking news right here on the entire, this is during the Ron Hextall regime when he was the general manager of the Philadelphia Flyers. So this is some interesting stuff, and just really described the disconnect in that Flyers front office when Ron Hextall was the GM. And definitely this is something that people were not expecting to hear today, and Flyers fans are rightfully frustrated with this. From what Bobby Clarke said, I'm going to play this for you just in a little bit, but it really possibly just showcases the frustration with Ron Hextall's drafting and just where we are as a franchise in this point, how Hextall's draft, maybe his stubbornness, got the Flyers to where they are at this point. There's a very lot of issues with Hextall's drafting. Some players just not panning out to what they were supposed to be. Players not developing into what they're supposed to be. I'll get into that in a little bit, but first, I do want to play this quote from Bobby Clarke just because it really describes everything. So this is from the Cam and Strick podcast with Bobby Clarke as a guest, and it's talking about Ron Hextall, just Ron Hextall's drafting in general, especially on a crucial draft pick.
He alienated everybody right away. He shut his door. He locked the doors. He was the boss, and nobody else was part of it. We end up drafting. We get the second pick in the draft, and we end up drafting Nolan Patrick. None of our scouts wanted Nolan Patrick. It wasn't. I don't know where Patrick should have gone after his performances in Brown, and he's a pretty good player. But he certainly they wanted Makar. Of course, he went next. No, he's a superstar, and Patrick hasn't played number. But Hextall made that choice himself. And there were other choices that were made in our drafts that we're paying for. We've got 2 or 3 first-round picks that are never going to play. And that's why we're struggling. Hexie made some huge mistakes, and
hey, he gave the Blues Braden Shen too, So so
that was just as bad. Nobody knew it. Hexie made that on his own. All our scouts, it was at the draft. Our scouts were so mad at Hexie for doing that. We also had a chance to get O'Reilly from Buffalo, but we didn't. Obviously, that was the manager's decision, but it was another one that the scouts weren't consulted on.
Man, that's just like an eye-popping thing from Bobby Clarke talking about right there. Just the issues with Ron Hextall's draft, especially during the 2018 draft when Nolan Patrick was selected 2nd overall, and talking about how the Flyers scouts wanted Cale Makar, who is a superstar in this league right now with the Colorado Avalanche, and how the Flyers scouts wanted him over Nolan Patrick, but Hextall went over the advice from his scouts and decided to take Patrick instead. And basically at this point, I understand like going into that draft, yes, Patrick was more of the consensus top 2 pick. Going into that draft before he was injured in that, junior year, he was the consensus first overall pick, but then he got injured. He fell to the number 2 spot because Nico Hischier came up and rose to the number 1 overall selection. But when I know this rumor mill has been discussed a little bit with some of the Flyers, other beat reporters. I think Anthony Sanfilippo was one of the guys that was talking about this more on the Snow the Goalie podcast. And yeah, he was one of the main guys that was talking about this. And, like some people are definitely going to throw that down in the bucket just because they don't believe the source, or they just right now they take it as hearsay because nothing is fully confirmed yet. But now basically everything that Anthony Sanfilippo was talking about was true. And credit to him for finding for getting these sources, getting these credible sources, and finding this information about what actually went on in the Flyers front office, basically, when Ron Hextall was the general manager. And it was basically during that entire 2017 draft where you draft Nolan Patrick, and then eventually you trade Brayden Schenn, which eventually then became Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee. So I know, and basically what Bobby Clarke said right there, the Flyers, basically every scouting department, the entire front office had no idea that Ron Hextall was going to trade Brayden Schenn. That is just, why was there so much disconnect? That basically just shows you how bad it was at that point. And basically I know the Flyers in 2019-2020, when Hextall wasn't here, Chuck Fletcher became the general manager. Well, he was the general manager the year before that, but basically that entire season, could you describe that as the Flyers playing way above their heads and way above expectations? Is that what the team can actually be, or is what the team is right now what they actually are? I know that sentence was kind of, scrumbled a little bit, but you know what I mean. But it just really showcases of how Hextall's drafting possibly set this team back a while. With, I can understand Patrick was definitely a consensus number 5, like a top 5 pick. He was probably a top 2 pick in most scouting departments, but yes, there definitely was some concerns with drafting Patrick because of his injury history. I think there were some reports about his attitude issue as well or something like that, but it was mainly just because of his injury history, especially in the juniors, just because he could not stay healthy. But Hextall went over the say of the scouts who wanted Cale Makar at the time. And basically that's the scenario that we're in right now. And I believe that in majority of Hextall's drafts, I do believe that this Nolan Patrick pick in 2017 is what truly set the franchise back, because you really just lucked into getting that top 5 pick, getting that number 2 overall pick. And I know in that 2017 draft, it was a very weak draft class going into it, but there were some guys that really stand out, and especially Cale Makar is the guy that stand out, and that's the guy that the Flyers scouts really wanted for this franchise, and Hextall just stepped over them and did not pick him at all. That becomes really frustrating. It does. And I really want to go over Hextall's previous drafts, just to showcase possibly. Yeah, like he's definitely has some hits over his time as the Flyers general manager, but there are definitely a lot of misses. I'm not really going to focus on most late round picks because, yes, late round picks I do believe involve some luck in those players panning out, but then you can also discuss on the Flyers player development system in general, because, yes, the Flyers, when Hextall was doing these drafts, the Flyers did have a consensus at least top 5 prospect pool in the National Hockey League. I think luck does get involved with it. Development does get involved with it too, and maybe there's just some players that we overestimated to be what they could be and what they are currently right now. So I'm going to look at his previous drafts and just discuss on some of these picks that, what they are right now. So 2014, that was the first year Hextall was given, the full GM title from Paul Holmgren. So the 2014 draft was the first year as Hextall as the official Flyers GM. So his first pick in the Flyers, as their general manager, was Travis Sanheim. He was the first pick as in his tenure as GM, and Sanheim, he's definitely one of the mainstays in the top 4 right now. And he's definitely, I would say, this is probably one of his better seasons basically ever since getting called up to the NHL, and I think it has a lot to do with being paired with Rasmus Ristolainen because those two do have some type of chemistry there. So I would say this is definitely Sanheim's better season, but for how long he has been in the NHL, you would expect him to take the next step in his game, which he really hasn't done. So there's some issues there. Then you have Nicolas Aube-Kubel in the second round, which he was a good player, a good bottom six forward for us in that 1920 season. But then, he got into the inconsistency issues. He wasn't really scoring as much, producing in that bottom six role. And he became a major penalty taker and taking a lot of stupid penalties, which resulted in him being waived and getting claimed by the Colorado Avalanche this season. So then you also have Mark Friedman, who the Flyers waived and got picked up by Pittsburgh, who was Ron Hextall was the GM at the time. He really likes Mark Friedman. And then you have one of the more later round picks that actually has become, I guess, more beneficial to the Flyers, and that's Oscar Lindblom. And yes, Oscar hasn't really, done much since the 1920 season, but credited he went through what he went through, and I'm just thankful that he is okay, and it's just great to see that he is still playing hockey at this point in his career. So I'm not really going to complain much about that, but there really wasn't much from the 2014 draft after that, so let's go to 2015. So this was one of the best drafts basically in NHL history, the Connor McDavid draft. So the Flyers, with the 7th overall pick that year, they drafted Ivan Provorov, and Ivan Provorov has been a mainstay number one defenseman for this league, and he has been one of the main minute loggers for this team and basically in the NHL for a while. But also, has Provorov really taken the next step in his game? Like, I do believe Provorov is way better than what he is showcasing right now, but then you also got to handle he's basically been playing with a different defensive partner every single season. He's been playing with Andrew McDonald. He played with Matt Niskanen. Now he's supposed to be Ryan Ellis, but he's injured. Now he's playing with Justin Braun. It's just like he's been playing with so many different defensive partners to where he can't find that consistency. And yes, definitely you would want Provorov to bring his game up to where he doesn't have to rely on his partner to be better. You would want him to be able to carry that partner as he gets better in age. But right now, I know Provorov is still very young. Maybe he can develop into that or just, still become that true number one defenseman. But right now it hasn't shown. Travis Konechny with the 24th overall pick in that first round, and Konechny has been a real frustration so far at this point, just because it's right now he's just super inconsistent, and he goes into these stretches where basically since the bubble, because that 1920 season was really his breakout year to be one of the best point producers on the team, but the past couple of years, ever since the bubble and the playoffs, he just really struggles to put the puck into the back of the net. And I'm not sure if that has to do with Alain Vigneault's system really screwing him up since the bubble, but he gets off to these hot starts every year where he is scoring, and it looks like he's going to bounce back, but he just doesn't, and he goes through these long stretches of not being able to score, and he's stuck. He hasn't scored since November 18th. Right now, it's January 11th. He's almost going on 2 full months without scoring a goal. That's a problem. That is a major problem there. You got Felix, then you got some other picks in this draft. You got Felix Sandstrom, who's going to be one of the mainstays in the goaltending. I'm not really going to judge the goaltending prospects because I do believe that's where Hextall was a little bit better at, but still, right now, I'm not going to really judge that. Another pick in this draft, Mikhail Vorobiev. I know a lot of people there was a lot of things that hyped him up. Oh, this is a steal in the 5th round for the Philadelphia Flyers, and 4th round actually. But when he came, he was great in the AHL, but it just never translated into the NHL. It just didn't. It just did not. David Kasha was also one of those picks. I don't really think he's playing with the Phantoms anymore. I think he's still playing overseas, so there's not really that much in the rest of the 2015 draft. The 2016 draft, I think there were a lot of misses, but there also were some hits as well. But the first round, Gerben Rubstov, I know Gerben Rubstov, he was lighting it up in the AHL when he first got down there. Then he got a huge injury, which, yes, injury is also a major key in a lot of these Flyers prospects as well. But Gerben Rubstov is still a major miss at that point, to where he hasn't made a true impact on this franchise at all. He's only played 4 NHL games so far, and I don't see him becoming anything at all. That's just it. Pascal Laberge, he was good in juniors, but then he got that huge concussion, which really just affected his game and really was not able to, develop into what he could be. But then you also look at this 2016 draft where I think Alex DeBrincat from the Chicago Blackhawks could have got drafted in that slot, and the Flyers didn't do it. Which I know at that standpoint, you can say that a lot of people missed on Alex DeBrincat, so there's also that standpoint too. But then you also draft Carter Hart, which is basically your franchise goaltender right now. So Hextall did hit on Carter Hart. You got Wade Allison, who does look like he can be a good player, but once again, injury issues. That is one of the major reasons. Carson Twarynski, he's nothing more than a bottom six forward, a fourth line forward at best. Same thing with Connor Bunnaman. They're nothing special. And then basically Tanner Linzinski, he's probably going to be the same thing, nothing more than a bottom six forward, maybe a fourth or third line at best, but we really haven't been able to showcase because, once again, injuries with the prospects. That's, like I said, it's another one of the major issues. And this is one of the second to last drafts for Ron Hextall, which I believe was probably one of the more, underwhelming just because of what has recently talked about with Bobby Clarke. First, the second overall pick, Nolan Patrick. We all know the story there. I can continue to go on and on about this, but we all know at this point, the Flyers development team, or the scouting department, wanted Cale Makar. He went with Nolan Patrick, and we all know the entire story about Nolan Patrick. Morgan Frost, the 27th overall pick from the Brayden Schenn trade, and Morgan Frost right now really is struggling to find that consistency in the NHL. He is still very young, I do understand that, but I do understand the Flyers fans' frustration with, just this guy was really hyped up to be something, and right now he's not showcasing that. I can really understand that frustration with the Flyers. Like, I'm still willing to be patient with Frost, but at the same time, I'm also frustrated as well, just because we've had so many picks that were hyped up over so many years, and few of them have really developed into what they possibly could be, and still probably some haven't even hit to what they were hyped up to be yet. Most likely, I think Carter Hart was that guy that's really only hit so far to what he's hyped up to be, and Carter Hart's still one of the younger players on the team, so that's one of the major issues as well. Isaac Ratcliffe, he's a guy that I really just don't see anything from either. Like, he has injury issues as well. Like, he did have that 50-goal season in his last year of the juniors, but it really just has not translated into the AHL at all, so I really don't understand. I don't see anything in Ratcliffe right now. Ustamenko, he's another goaltending prospect. I'm not going to judge that. Matthew Strome, not going to see anything happening there. Shusko, really nothing there. Noah Cates, who they have yet to sign to an entry-level contract. He's still playing in college. Like I said, I don't see him anymore as a 4-4 third-line forward at best. So there's, your summary there. And then you go to Hextall's last draft, the last one in 2018 before he did get fired. He drafted Joel Farabee, and that was the extra pick from the Brayden Schenn trade. So Joel Farabee right now, I do believe, out of Hextall's picks, he's still one of the better players that he has drafted. Farabee, over his career, he has 75 points in 135 games with 38 goals and 37 assists. So I think Joel Farabee, he has showcased some great moments with this team. I do believe he can become better as he does get older, and he's still one of the other picks that Hextall has drafted that showcases he can play in this league, and I think he's going to get better. So Joel Farabee, I do think, is one of the more hits from the Ron Hextall era, one of the few hits. Then you got Jay O'Brien as the 19th overall pick, which was, that whole story. He hasn't played in the NHL yet. I'm not sure if he signed an entry-level contract yet. I don't believe so. Where he's been going from college, he went to the BCHL, now he's back in college, so I'm not sure what's going to happen with that Jay O'Brien pick at that point. You got Adam Ginning, really nothing at the end here. You got Samuel Erson, who's playing down with Lehigh Valley right now. So the goaltending prospects, like I said, I really don't have an issue with, because some of the goaltending prospects for this team are better than I think are some of the more better prospects in this organization. But still, just looking at these guys, like, the major summary that I say for a lot of these people are third line, fourth line forwards at best. Really, Hextall has not drafted a lot of people that you can say have second line, first line potential. Really, the only guys that you can say out of this list that have second line, first line potential are Travis Konecny, who's currently a second line, first line type of player, Morgan Frost, who is still struggling to show that consistency, and Joel Farabee. That's really three people on this list that I've stated, because when you get into the other drafts, that's when Chuck Fletcher has taken control. So it's frustrating. It really is, because especially it goes towards what Bobby Clarke said, especially in that 2017 draft, just because Hextall went over what the scouts were telling him to do, and he just didn't listen to them. Like, it just showcased, like, yes, Hextall definitely showcased he was a stubborn person. And I know some people want to say that, oh, he went to Pittsburgh, he's going to ruin that franchise. Yeah, he's got Brian Burke above him as the president, so I think Brian Burke is making more of the decisions than Hextall actually is. If Hextall was fully in charge of the front office for Pittsburgh, I don't see Hextall making that Jeff Carter trade. I think that's more of a Brian Burke decision there. So right now, Pittsburgh, they're still one of the better teams in the league. The Flyers, they're showcasing what they've continued to be this entire decade, just a bad team that's stuck in the middle, that's not good. They're not terrible. They're just mediocre. And right now, I don't know what this team does because because right now they're still one of the more profitable teams in the National Hockey League. I don't see Comcast doing anything about it. But this team has really going to make a decision at the trade deadline because they're not making the playoffs this year. They're not going to. Sell off your UFAs. Get draft picks for these next upcoming 2 drafts because the 2023 draft is when you could probably get some franchise pieces, but that's still way down the road, and I have no idea what's going to happen with this Flyers franchise. It's just really frustrating to be a Flyers fan right now. And yeah, that's basically the entire summary of this standpoint. So I know this was a longer version of a video, everyone, but I really just wanted to showcase the frustration that we all have with this team. So what are your thoughts on Bobby Clarke's statement on Ron Hextall, and what are your thoughts on everything with this Flyers team so far? So definitely don't forget to leave those comments in the comment section, everyone. Don't forget to drop a like on this video. Don't forget to check out the Painted Lines, which I'm a part of. Their links are down in the description below. Also, don't forget to check out the links to BrodesMedia, the Flyer.pod merch website, and also Flyers Nitty Gritty. All that good stuff is down in the description below. Don't forget to check those out. And like I said at the beginning of the video, the most important thing you could do is hit that sub button, everyone. I'll appreciate that, and I will see you next time.